you can work all day and get absolutely nowhere. What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. I want to kick it with you guys for a minute, and hopefully I can add some value into your life, and then you can use this to continue to level up, all right? Jumping off of coaching calls, I always like to lean on the thing that is affecting people the most, right? And the thing that I see affecting people the most is they got the grind, they got the hustle, they have everything they need in order to be successful, but they aren't as successful as they should be. And then you start to ask yourself why, and then you mine through the different reasons and the ways in which they operate on a regular basis. And then I realize that part of the reason that they're not as successful as they need to be is because they haven't adjusted the way that they think in their lifestyle to reflect their work ethic. And so I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, somebody levels up, like they really start getting to the bag and they leveling up, or they putting in a lot of hours and they getting a lot of overtime depending on whatever profession that they in. Let's say they in trucking, right? Or auto manufacturing, and they got a lot of hours that's available for everybody. Most people subconsciously and slowly, very slowly, starts to adjust their lifestyle to what it is that they're doing or what it is that they're generating from a financial aspect. And I'm telling you that that is one of the worst things that you can possibly do. It is quite possibly one of the worst things that you can possibly do. And the reason that is because you can't sustain that, right? You can't sustain it because if you grind for 60 hours to 100 hours to the rest of your life, you're going to be broken down. And I'm not saying that it's not important for you to work hard, but the reason that you work hard is so that you don't have to work as hard later in life. You start to put all of those resources and what you got into assets and generating revenue and investments and things like that. But most people, they try to make sure that they live the life because they say that I deserve it now that I'm generating a lot of the revenue. And that's the worst thing that you can do, because then what you'll find yourself doing is having to work just as hard in order to maintain that lifestyle. It's crazy. It's silly. And people do it all day, every day, because that becomes their norm. They adjust their budget to what it is that they projected to make. And it's just like a company, right? What you see happening in society today is there are a ton of people, right, that work for these companies and they go and get these jobs and so on and so forth. And when things are good, everybody is on a hiring spree. Think about the real estate industry, right? Or the mortgage industry. And what they did was they hired a whole lot of people to make sure that they could sustain the growth that the company was having at that particular time. And then people don't pivot and start to make adjustments, or companies don't pivot and start to make adjustments until after everything starts going bad. And so what happens is middle class people and the regular everyday workers are the ones that catch the brunt of what happens when it comes to the layoffs. And so everything was at an all-time high. People were generating a record amount of revenue, and then the companies hired way too many people. And then when the economy went bust, or inflation is at an all-time high, and you got a recession possibly on the horizon, then they start cutting back. And you know who the first to go? You. And so they can't sustain that growth. And so instead of them projecting more effectively, what they do is they mess up, and then you and your job is at risk because they don't know how to manage their staff effectively, right? They pause hiring. They say we're gonna pause hiring, or they say that we're gonna adjust to make sure that we meet market conditions. But the market conditions have always been cyclical. So how have you not been able to adjust your business plans in order to account for that? And it's the same thing with people on a regular everyday basis. What happens is people go about, they adjust their budgets according to what their current lifestyle is, and they didn't adjust for future market conditions. They did not plan for the future. They didn't learn from 2008. They didn't learn from everybody else's mistakes and going broke. And so now you have a group of people that are doing things that are not in their best interests because they did not adjust for market conditions. That Porsche is pretty sweet. They didn't adjust for future market conditions. And so now you're going to have to work 100 hours for the rest of your life. Listen, I believe that men should work at least 60 hours. Me, myself, I believe that I'm an extraordinary human because I'm able to sustain working for an extended period of time and generating a lot of revenue. But if you don't think that I'm pouring every single thing that I have from that into businesses and looking at things from a business perspective and making sure that everything is great and adding value and making sure that I'm continuing to buy real estate and invest in other people and so on and so forth, you're insane, bro. You are insane. See, the difference is that I do this because I understand what it is that I'm trying to do. I want to buy the Pistons one day. I say that all the time. You know, I want to be, you know, the person that generates all of the revenue so that I can then empower other people and put other people on, which is exactly what I do. But as far as my own personal finances and lifestyle, I have no debt. I have no issues. I have nothing that's binding me to the hours that I work on a regular basis. My personal budget is literally nothing. If you want to know how I'm able to move more effectively, and my personal budget is actually less than $1,000 a month, tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat, because the Bag Chasers is doing some phenomenal things. We're going to be meeting up in the Midwest. If you want to know the exact location, you want to know the exact date, I fly to different places every single month to do meetups, depending on what the weather is like during that specific time in that area, to make sure that I'm adding as much value as possible to the people. We're here in Atlanta. We're doing a Lapeef Let's Talk show right now, so that's going absolutely awesome. We got some great things happening. Mastermind sessions, build the business inside of the Patreon, adding all of the value as much as possible to make sure that people are taken care of and that they're getting the most out of their situation. But the point that I'm making is that what good is it to work 100 hours a week and then to blow it all? Think about it like this. Let me summarize this like this. If you go and you work 100 hours a week, and let's say you make $15,000 a month. I know I sound like a crazy number for some people, but that's only the equivalent of $180,000 a year, right? And I say only like that's the average, but I'm telling you, I'm breaking this down for a reason. Let's think about it. Let's say you make $15,000 a month, which is the equivalent of $180,000 a year gross. And then you are single, and so you are in the top tax bracket, right? Let's say you then get married and you still generating that $180,000. And you work it and you work it and you grinding and you hustling. And let's be clear, most people that's getting that type of money, they're not just sitting on their butt all day. They're not playing video games and chilling. Most people are hustling and grinding. So let's say you generate a lot of revenue. And after taxes, you got what you got. And then after your expenses, you got what you got. And then you got a decent amount of money left over for you to do what you need to do and do what you want to do. And then your girl goes and she spends all of it on one handbag. One handbag. You work the equivalent of, let's just say, 400 hours that month. 4 weeks, 100 hours a week, 400 hours. You traded in 400 hours of your life to pay Uncle Sam, your daddy, which then gives your money over into the people that's running in the Victim Olympics and saying let's eat the rich. And then your girl go and she buy a handbag with the rest of it. How would you feel about that? In 10 minutes, she used 400 hours worth of work aside from what Uncle Sam took, and that's the end of the conversation. Would you be happy with that? That's how you're living your life every single day. You're trading in your time for money, and then you're trading in that money for things that don't actually add value into your life. I'm not saying that it's not cool to have nice things, but what I am saying is that you need to be a lot more intentional with what it is that's adding value into your life, and you want to have your investments pay for your lifestyle and not the other way around. All right, your lifestyle got to reflect your work ethic, and it's not doing that because you're depending on it instead of making adjustments and making sure that you get everything you get on the back end and stop being so consumed with what you're getting on the front end. The front end of money, that don't mean nothing. The back end money is what we work for. I love you. I appreciate you. Hopefully I'm continuing to add value into your life. If you need to kick it with me personally, email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com. I'm going to make sure I'm adding value into your life that way. I do Zoom calls. I do personal phone calls. We're going to kick it on that end. But in the meantime, make sure you join the Patreon because it's a lot of value from the people that's in the Patreon, and they making sure they're doing the work. And I've created a community of people that is absolutely dope and it's phenomenal. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you later. Peace.